Welcome to the Big Success Show. Today, 5 lessons for entrepreneurs from the collapse of Woodstock 50. Brought to you by financialfreedomtool.com.
Tips to be your best with the professor and Mary-Lynn for your big success.
Do you remember Woodstock? No, Mary-Lynn, I know you don't remember Woodstock.
I think some people who were there probably don't remember Woodstock.
Well, this is true, and I almost don't. Well, I really don't remember it. I remember learning all about it. Right?
Right.
It was 3 days in hippie heaven.
But peace, love, and rock and roll, man.
Yes, and perhaps a few other things too.
That's the thing. It's so iconic. No matter what age you are, you know about Woodstock. You know what happened.
Absolutely.
You've seen the photos, the documentaries. It's just a legendary event. And today's show is inspired by an excellent article in Rolling Stone magazine by Corey Grow about the fall of the 50th festival for Woodstock. And we do have a link to that article in our show notes today.
And here's the thing. I mean, this article is an amazing article. We highly recommend it to you. But we're going to pull some lessons out. There's plenty more. But the idea here is, if we have to learn from our own mistakes, that's pretty costly. If we can learn from the missteps of others, so much the better. So let's go. I'm George Kruger, a.k.a. The Professor.
And he is mistake-free. And I'm
Yeah. Boy, I'm going to remind you of that so many times, Mary-Lynn. I've got you on tape saying that.
And I'm Mary-Lynn. So back to the article, George, you kind of alluded to this. I mean, it's just very extensive. They did reporting on this festival and what went wrong.
Yeah.
They reported for 3 months, reviewed hundreds of legal filings, interviewed dozens of people. And, we're not going to get into any of that. But there was really, really cool information that we just saw that we're like, wow, this is perfect lessons for entrepreneurs to be able to learn from.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that there's definitely more than one side to this story. And in fact, I think it's all being battled out in court almost as we speak. But, we're not here to take sides. We're just taking information as stated in the article.
Well, maybe that's a lesson to be learned. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yes.
Whether the festival has widely succeeded or in this case collapsed, there's always going to be litigation.
Absolutely right. Well, it does happen. And we're also not here to criticize. So we're not going to talk about people by name. We're going to just talk about the funders or the funder and the promoters, that sort of thing. Because, we're not trying to be critical here. We're just saying, hey, this could happen to any one of us. And let's try to, learn from what happened with them.
Yeah. So the bottom line is we're staying out of the fray. It's just that we found some nuggets of information that really applies to anybody who's taking on an entrepreneurial venture. So coming up, 5 lessons we entrepreneurs can take away from the collapse of Woodstock 50. Brought to you by financialfreedomtool.com. Plenty of money for life.
How do your personal finances stack up to your neighbors? The new Financial Freedom Tool shows you how your income and expenses compare to other people like you, so that you quickly see how to save more money. Learn more at financialfreedomtool.com.
Today's show is inspired by a Rolling Stone article on the collapse of Woodstock 50, the festival that didn't come to be. And so what we're talking about are 5 lessons that entrepreneurs can learn from that. And lesson number 1 is money isn't everything.
Yeah, the author points out that Woodstock 50 was resource rich. I mean, think about it. You've got a brand name that pretty much, I think, almost everybody recognizes.
And who doesn't want to be, from artists to festival goers, who doesn't want to either relive the festival that they went to, or if you've grown up all these years just wanting a little taste of what was Woodstock like, whether you want to be on that stage or whether you want to be in that crowd, who doesn't want to be a part of that?
And it turns out they were actually kind of planning an event that mixed a lot of today's most popular artists with the classical artists.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's kind of a cool vibe, but keeping Woodstock relevant. And then they also had a moneyed global media company as the partner with a budget of up to $50 million. So,
wow.
So there's no question about it. There was a lot of money here. But here's the thing, and I've learned this from my own experience. So go ahead, Mary-Lynn.
Well, I was going to say, how is the lesson money isn't everything? Because you really need a lot of money for something like this.
Yes, but I think the problem is money, and I can speak to this firsthand, unfortunately. Okay. Money creates, when you have a lot of money, when you have more money than you need immediately, it creates sort of maybe you're not as urgent as you should be, or maybe you make your decisions aren't, maybe you don't examine the decision as much as you should, or you don't do enough due diligence on the decision. And so you end up making bad choices. And so money can actually work against you.
I was going to say that absolutely makes sense, because, when you're short on money, you seem to be a little bit more keen in how you slice and dice.
Yes.
But yeah, when you've got all of this in front of you, you just kind of kick your feet back and go, what shall we do?
Exactly. Yes.
All right. So lesson number 2 for entrepreneurs is be optimistic, but deal with reality.
And to understand what we're saying here, we're going to paraphrase a conversation between the promoter and the funder. And so the promoter was talking to the funder, and the promoter said that they thought the crowd capacity was up to 150,000. Mm-hmm. And the funder said, I thought it was 60,000. And the promoter said, where did you get that idea? And the funder said, from you.
Oh.
And so the point here is, later on, the service provider ended up saying they felt like it could hold, the capacity was 61,000. So it turns out that lower end was maybe more correct. But the entrepreneurs, the founders, kept pushing, the promoters kept pushing towards that 100,000 plus mark, and everything was going against them. And they just didn't stop and say, okay, here's what we wish things were, but here's the way things really are. And that's what you got to deal with as an entrepreneur.
And speaking about reality, as an entrepreneur who is optimistic, having to deal with reality, here's something, aside from how many customers you envision that you might have,
yes,
or can have, there's also the reality of cost and time. Yeah. That we all run into as entrepreneurs, and you've got a formula for that.
So I think when you're a startup or you're launching a new initiative, if you're already in business and you got some growth initiative, the kind of rule of thumb is whatever you think it's going to cost in time and money, multiply that by 2, or I even hear some people say 3 times, and you're probably getting a lot closer to where you really should be.
There you go. Reality. Smack dab in the face right there. All right. So lesson number 3 for entrepreneurs from the collapse of Woodstock 50 is that if it's all about money, you won't make much money.
The famous musician.
But wait, I thought you were supposed to show me the money.
There you go. Well, show me the money comes after you show me the benefits.
There you
right?
go. Yeah.
So legendary musician David Crosby, who was at the original Woodstock, he said this about the whole affair, and particularly the promoters. He said they tried to, I love this, he used magic as a verb. They tried to magic it into happening.
Which is kind of what happened with Woodstock. The original, right? I mean, it was just this big, it started and it snowballed, and so many people just got on board with it, and it just became this beautiful thing.
But therein lies the difference, Mary-Lynn. And David Crosby, to continue, he says, it wasn't about, so Woodstock 50, it wasn't about people feeling good about each other. It was about a few people making a lot of money. And it doesn't bring out the best in people. And I think we find this time and time again. You may think that money motivates all your people, but money as a motivator works on very few people. What people really want is to be part of something bigger, to feel like they belong somewhere where the world is being changed, even if it's just one corner of it.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. People don't get behind a brand's net worth. They get behind a brand's message, right?
Yes.
They get behind what the brand does for people.
The promise.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Lesson number 4 for entrepreneurs: be a doer, not a dreamer.
Yeah, the author of this Rolling Stone article about the collapse of Woodstock 50, he quotes photographer Barry Wallman, who actually also was at the original Woodstock, not the 50th. And he's talking about the promoter, and he says he's a dreamer. That's the problem. He doesn't know how to activate or realize the dream.
Okay. Well, I'm glad for the second part of that. Of his quote, because there's nothing wrong with being a dreamer.
No, there's nothing at all wrong with being a dreamer, as long as your dreams are part of the equation. And as long as it's not dream, this happens. I mean, it's so easy to have this happen. Dream.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to start doing. We have to do. So dreams are important because they help us set our vision. But the doing is important because it helps us realize that vision.
Yeah, and the doing part is all the stuff that isn't exactly the creative part. I mean, we've worked with creative clients before, and they love the creative aspect, the dreaming of what I can do, this thing I can create, but you've got to determine what's that price going to be.
Yeah.
How many of those pieces can you produce realistically?
Yeah.
And that's how you set your price.
Yep.
How much time is that going to take?
Yep.
How are you going to advertise? How much do you think that will cost? I mean, you've got to put all of these pieces into place to make the dream be a reality.
You betcha. And so the dream is emotional. It's all about the vision. But the thing is, the doing is all about fulfilling your mission.
All right, lesson number 5. Here's the big one for entrepreneurs in the collapse of Woodstock 50. Pick your money partners carefully.
And this is really true of all partners, but in this particular case, there was just angst between the promoters and the funder almost from the moment they signed the deal,
And don't you think that's probably common? There's always going to be some kind of friction between, the person who's got the idea and the person who's got the cash, and how we're going to come together and make something happen.
Well, when things go well, everybody's scrambling to get the credit. When things go poorly, everybody's scrambling to place the blame. So that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, it just seemed like in this particular case that there was constant pushback by the money partner, by the funder, about spending money, even though it was already budgeted, and even though there were aspects where it looks like they went over budget. But the point is, they really push back hard, and you'll find this a lot with the difference between equity funders and a bank. So equity funders, real good venture capitalists, let's just put it that way. Like a venture capitalist, they're probably going to look at your projections and how much you're asking for from them. In many cases, they may say, you need more money than that. You don't understand what it's going to take to get to that level of sales. You need more money. The banker, being the conservative people they are and doing their jobs, watching out for our money as depositors, they're very likely to say, oh, don't you think you could get by with less? And sometimes that getting by with less actually costs you the business. So you want to make sure that you're aligned with your funders and that your funders really understand what you're doing. And in this case, that probably wasn't the case, that there was a lot of inexperience in this whole group of people. And that may be what ultimately kind of cost them.
So that brings us to today's big takeaway.
Dreams turn into nightmares without a well-organized plan.
Do you want to prevent missteps in your business? Do you want to find your best path forward and turn your idea into a business? Do you want to gain clarity on your next move? Maybe we can help. Check out our coaching service at bigsuccess.com. That's big with 2 G's, success.com/coaching.
And we thank you so much for listening to our show today.
Until next time,
Here's to your big success.
Tips to be your best with the Professor and Mary-Lynn for your big success.
Find big success at biggsuccess.com.